So in this video, we're going to talk about how to make a map from the downloadable data for lesson 2, which is our utility pole survey 123 survey. So for me, I have a slightly different account as my account's an organizational account with ArcGIS. So I'm able to see all of the data that has been downloaded, and that's what you're looking at here. So you're looking at the points where people have collected individual information, and then down here at the bottom is that attribute information that each of you have captured about the individual points. And when we get into ArcGIS next winter, we're actually going to be able to use this attribute information to better symbolize our individual points. And I'll probably do that for a map for lesson 2 in lesson 3 sometime once we get more information in here. So at this point, there's 93 individual records, we call it. So that's individual rows. So each row is a record, and each column in ArcGIS we call a field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this as a Kml file. So that Kml file will be openable directly into Google Earth. So all of these points will show up in Google Earth. So that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a zipped folder with this Kml file. And I'll give you a real brief look at what that actually looks like. So the folder you're going to be pulling from on the Blackboard page is going to be this one right here, this lesson 2 utility pole data. And I'm just going to label it April 9th, 2020. That was my first poll of the information. And you can see that there's a Google Earth file, which Google Pro will open directly into Google Earth and show you those points. So that's the file type that you're going to be using. You're going to have this folder that's going to be like this, a zipped folder or compressed folder, and you're going to need to right click on that and point to extract all. And that will extract or open the folder, remove the zipper off of it, and it will be openable like what you have here. So we're going to go over to CalTopo now, and we'll plug in or we'll import our file. So I'm going to import that from there. It was on my desktop. You can put your file wherever you choose. Probably going to go to your downloads most likely. So I'm going to choose the file. So I just am going up here to import, choose file. And since I've done this before, it's navigating directly to that. So it's going to my FT221 folder and my lesson 2 folder that I had for the data poll that I just did. And then here we have the utility pole lesson. So I'm going to select that one, and we're then going to go ahead and hit open. And it's going to ask us what we want to do with this stuff. So ideally, it would just be your individual data, because then there'd be 10 to 15 points. If you know where yours is at, you can uncheck all of these and then just select the markers that you want to actually use. That'll make it easier if you want to change the symbols. This week, I don't really care. Just get the data into the map. So I'm going to select all of them, and then I'm just going to hit import. But you'll see what I mean by that. So I'm zoomed to this one location here in, looks like, I think it's Northeast Portland. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. Yeah, it looks like about Northeast Portland. You can see all of our points load in here. The symbols or the symbology for each utility pole is the scale is fairly ridiculous, as you can imagine here. So if you look at it, when we zoom in, and I'm just rolling with my mouse to zoom into the locations, they're the size of they're the size of the street, essentially. So that's pretty ginormous. If we would have only selected, the ones that we wanted to deal with, we could edit those symbols, and you can do that if you want to, whatever. You also would really want to maybe edit the location of these, because the utility poles are probably not in the middle of the street. Just depends upon how much detail you want to get into. I'm not going to go over that this week. Don't really worry about it. I'm going to change the imagery here, so I'm going to switch this up here to the Nape imagery. The Nape imagery just prints a little bit better. And you're going to see that here in a moment. So the next step then is once I zoom in, I'm just going to pick whoever's points these were. Note that there's all the attribute information that goes along with it. So, when we put this into ArcGIS in the future, it's going to be a lot easier to make better maps of our points. But for this week, just make a map of this. So the next thing we need to do is once we've kind of zoomed to the area we want to deal with, you could rename these if you wanted to. You can go in and edit them. So if I click on this edit point, I can go in here and change all the individual styles of our utility points, and you can make them all the same. You can label them A, B, C, D, whatever you want. If you want to get into that, go for it by all means, but not necessary. So next step here is to make our map of our points. So I'm going to go to print. And I need to go up here to print PDF or JPEG. I prefer a PDF file. So this is going to generate a new PDF for us. You can kind of center that, so grab this little red centroid part here and, kind of center your coordinates on the map. And then the next thing you're going to want to do is maybe give it a title. So I'm just going to call this Lesson 2 Utility Poles. The downside to this format is we're pretty limited with the amount of text that can go in here, but we'll deal with it. I'm also going to add UTM coordinates. I'm not going to allow it to be auto. I'm going to put in 100-meter grid. I'm going to leave my aerial image on there. I got my topo lines on, so I feel like that's probably a decent enough map. I'm going to go ahead and hit generate PDF. And while that works, there we go. I've got my PDF with all the necessary map elements to a specific scale. Has my title on it, my coordinate system, my individual scale bar, and then all the different ratio scale and so forth. So that meets all of the criteria. The only downside is it's not allowing us to put our name on there, but that's okay. When you send it to me, I know who it's going to come from. So that should get you through lesson 2, and we'll be doing basically the same things for lesson 3 and lesson 4, and then lesson 5 will be maybe a little bit more in depth as we go on. But that's how we will make a map using CalTopo and downloading our coordinates from our KMZ or KML file.